Welcome to BoilerBall postgame in the lounge. I am going to be your host, Dustin Schutte, for tonight. Sam Sprunger is out. Grant Floor is also out tonight. So this is going to be a one-man operation. So we'll see. I'll do the best that I can, but no promises here guaranteed. Unfortunately for the Boilermakers, they're on the wrong side of a 76-74 decision against Michigan State tonight, which a game from start to finish was just a really good college basketball game. Like, if you had no rooting interest in this game, it was just a really fun game to watch. Two really talented teams with a lot of skill on both sides of the floor. And it was just entertaining really from start to finish. And kind of just dive in here, I guess, a little bit. We'll start with that start. And I don't think you could have asked for Purdue to have a better start to this game. They open up what I believe was a 13-4 lead early tonight. Came out, had all the momentum. They were getting after it on both ends of the floor, knocking down shots. They were playing well defensively. CJ Cox got into a rhythm on that end of the floor early. It looked like this was going to be one of those games. And, Purdue had lost 3 games at home. They had lost to Iowa State, a game that they got blown out of, or back in December. They lost to Illinois, a game where Keaton Wagler just went off. And then a game against Michigan where, Michigan has basically built a super team. And you felt like tonight, when you got up to that 13-4 start, it felt like Purdue was going to maybe exercise some of those demons. They were going to finally beat a ranked team here on their home court, give their fans a lot to celebrate with only one more home game left. But that wasn't the case. And credit to Michigan State, because they weathered that storm. This place was, quote unquote, whiteout conditions here tonight. And Michigan State really weathered the storm. And they were able to get through that first 4-minute blitz. And in the second, from the time of the first media timeout to the time of the second media timeout, they'd outscored Purdue 10-2. And I believe they took the 16-15 advantage in the game. And then from there, it was just back and forth. But I thought, you look at this holistically, and again, I'm trying to guide here myself and come up with points. So if I'm blabbering, but one of the things that I think stood out in this game in particular was you came into this game knowing Michigan State was one of the best rebounding teams in the country. They are a plus 12.5 differential on the season. They average 41 rebounds per game. You thought, okay, is this going to be an Illinois or Michigan situation where, a lot of the loose balls are going to wind up in Michigan State's hands? And that wasn't the case tonight. Purdue came away with 2 more rebounds, 27-25 on the glass. They win that battle. I think if you would have asked folks coming into this game, if you tie Michigan State on the glass, what's going to be the outcome if you're able to tie Michigan State on the glass or beat them on the glass? I think most people wearing black and gold are going to say Purdue wins that game going away, because that's the one thing that has been Michigan State's strengths in wins and his losses is rebounding the basketball. So the fact that Purdue was able to hold serve in that kind of set the tone physically in that department, I thought that was, that's a great sign. But weren't able to do that. So that, and Matt Painter talked about that in the postgame. That was kind of a silver lining tonight, was Purdue's ability to rebound the basketball, hang with one of the best teams in the country in that department. I thought that there were the difference in the game, and I'll just kind of jump to this right away. Like, the biggest difference in the game was Purdue only had 9 turnovers. And, 99 times out of 100, if you have 9 turnovers, you're putting yourself in a really good position to win the game. But Michigan State turned that into 19 points. So Michigan State can score 18 points on 9 turnovers, and they're batting 1,000. Right? So the fact that they were able to get 19 points off turnovers, that was the difference in the game. Purdue only had 9 turnovers. Michigan State ended the game with 6. Purdue had 5 points off turnovers. Michigan State had 19. Right there. That's the difference in the game. And, one of the things that Matt Painter had talked about before kind of coming into this game was you can't let them get out in transition. You can't have live ball turnovers. You can't let them get out and run, because especially with a guy like Jeremy Fears, who can dictate tempo and either get to the rim or find somebody down the court. And then when he's got a running mate with the athleticism of a guy like Cohen Carr, it's going to spell trouble. And it certainly spelled trouble tonight for Purdue. Purdue just didn't have the guys that could get back. They didn't have the guys that could challenge at the rim. When they did, I think there was a time or two when they were able to get back to the rim, but Daniel Jacobson fouled on one occasion. They just really had no stop for that. So this was a game where it was almost better to just, pick up a foul if Michigan State got out in transition, because Purdue had no answer for that. And there aren't a lot of teams, by the way, that do have the answer for that. You just have to minimize your turnovers, and Purdue really did that to the best of their ability tonight. I thought that there were a couple ugly mistakes early in the game, especially in the first half. Omer Meyer obviously hit some big shots tonight, especially in the first half, but he had two plays where he tried to dribble through. I think one was a double team when he was trying to take it into the paint and maybe get a better shot. I'm not sure what he was trying to do, but tried to squeeze through two Michigan State defenders and resulted in a turnover. And then a few plays later, did the same thing, but he wasn't trying to go through two defenders. He was basically just trying to go through one Michigan State defender, loses the ball, it goes out of bounds. Michigan State gets the ball out of a timeout. So it was little things like that tonight that were all the difference in the world. And, I thought, look, I'm people probably are going to get tired of hearing me say this, but I don't think Purdue played that badly. Like Michigan State just made one more bucket tonight. You look all around, like Purdue got production from every single one of the players who stepped on the floor tonight. Trey Kaufman-Renn, he had 10 points and 6 rebounds. He had a phenomenal game distributing the basketball. Ended the game with 7 assists. There were a lot of times when Michigan State would double and he would kick it out to the open man. And there was one, at a pivotal point where he hit Jakari Harris at the top of the key. I think that gave Purdue the lead back in the second half. He had some really good play there. Oscar Cluff set the tone offensively early in this game. He had 10 points on 5 of 6 shooting, and relatively early. And then Michigan State was able to take him out of the game. Looked like he got gassed a little bit, but that's what Michigan State will do to you. Their physicality and the way they force you to defend, the way that they force you to attack on the glass, like Oscar Cluff set the tone tonight. He just couldn't continue that for a full 40 minutes. Daniel Jacobson, I thought, was a guy who came in and early in this game was getting shoved around and pushed around. Maybe didn't look quite ready for the physicality of this game. But then there was a stretch from the 14-minute mark to the 12-minute mark in the second half when he had 4 points, a block, and a rebound. And was just like and all night long, he was working really hard in the post. Like, I don't know if it came through on TV or not, but he was working his tail off in the post, trying to get rebounds, trying to get good position. I think his body's just not quite ready for that level of Big Ten basketball every single play, every single time down the floor. Now, remember, Zach Edey's body, his first 2 years at Purdue, was also not ready for that. Was not prepared for that moment. So there's going to be some development with Daniel Jacobson, but there were times when I thought he let Michigan State set the tempo, or not the tempo, but be the aggressor. And then there were other times when I thought he matched their physicality. So as the game progressed, I thought he got a little bit better. But early in this game, certainly was getting pushed around, couldn't collect rebounds, was struggling to finish around the rim. He still ended the game with 6 points, 3 of 5 from the floor. So he didn't take a ton of shots. But when you get some of those in close range, you got to finish in a game like this. The one thing that I think, Braden Smith was phenomenal today. 12 points, 10 assists. He was distributing. He had 7 assists by the half. He was playing extremely well. But one of the things that you want to see from Braden Smith in these type of games is you want to see him aggressive in terms of his shot selection. And I didn't think he was early in this game. And sometimes what that does is, even though he got it going, and we saw this in the second half against Michigan, even though he was able to get it going in the second half, and even though he played tremendously getting his teammates involved, sometimes that forces defenses to make a decision like, okay, are we going to have to take Braden's space away because he's scoring at will right now? Do we want to allow him to get into a rhythm distributing? What do we need to do? And so I just thought that if he could have been a little bit more aggressive a little bit earlier in this game, it would have helped Purdue's offense. Not saying they would have won, not even saying those shots go in, right? But look, Braden Smith is not the reason why they lose this game. He goes 4 of 10 from the floor, 2 of 7 from 3-point range. Again, 10 assists. He's now in the 1,000 assist club in college basketball, one of just 5 players to do that. So tip of the cap to him. He's been sensational his entire career. And had a pretty good look at the end of the game, right? Like, he had 3.4 seconds. There's not a lot of time to draw up anything. You just want to get a shot up. So I thought that the smart thing to do was, even though that's, basically at the logo, he got a shot. And you would have been really frustrated if he tried to do too much and he loses the ball or he passes and time expires, you don't get a shot up. So, I thought he played really well. I would have just liked to see him be a little bit more aggressive tonight. But look, the supporting cast from Purdue, I thought, played really well. Purdue got 16 second chance points when you go back to the rebounding. Jakari Harris comes in. I thought he did some nice things defensively. Gets 5 points for the Boilermakers. Jack Benter was he was the guy that came in, and one of the things you probably noticed late in this game, and I don't know if it was a 12-minute mark at the 10-minute mark, but there was a long stretch there where Matt Painter wanted to play small ball, put Trey at the 5, you put in Jack Benner. Omer Meyer was on the floor pretty frequently there in that stretch. CJ Jakari were kind of in and out, and Braden was obviously on the floor. But, I asked Matt Painter about that, and basically he said that they liked what Jack was able to do in terms of being able to switch things defensively. And they thought that gave them some, maybe they don't have the height advantage, but they can switch things up defensively. They'll be a little bit quicker, and then it really opens things up offensively. They liked the matchups they were getting with Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 5 spot, and it allowed him to either go to work in the post or it allowed him to facilitate out elsewhere. And again, 10 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds tonight. He was all over the place. He didn't have a 20-point performance like he did against Indiana, not 27 and 12 like he had against Michigan, but just a very efficient, very good night. He did all that on only 1 turnover. So they liked those matchups they were getting, and they thought Trey could take advantage of it. And so that's why they went with the smaller situation. And by the way, maybe some people will not like that because Michigan State ends the game with 40 points in the paint. But early on in that second half, Carson Cooper was eating Oscar Cluff alive. There were 2 or 3, I think there were 3 straight possessions where they went into the interior and attacked Cluff, and he was able to just knock down shots. So I don't know that Purdue missed much defensively when they took Cluff out in terms of their post presence. And obviously, again, I think Jacobson he played 10 minutes today. I think that was pretty much all he could handle tonight, but he played well. But so I thought that was interesting that they decided to go small ball. Now, there was a stretch there where they hadn't scored in about 4 minutes, and Michigan State won on a 7-0 run and kind of broke this game open, take an 8-point lead. And, they were able to get back into a rhythm. Jack Benner hit a big 3 coming out of a timeout. Braden Smith hit a 3. Braden Smith knocks down a 2. So they were getting production on both ends of the floor. And the one thing I thought was interesting, too, was they really didn't see a dip in terms of their rebounding. Usually when you don't have Oscar or Daniel in there and you're just leaving Trey at the 5 to box out the 5, usually you see a dip in their rebounding production, and especially in a game like this where they're playing one of the best rebounding teams in the country. There was no dip. I thought Jack Benner did a good job. Fletcher Lawyer swooped in on a Cam Ward missed free throw at the end of the game to secure the rebound for Purdue to make sure that they got the last shot of the game. So just a really good defensive effort. Really, this game came down to, I'm just saying again, points off turnovers for Michigan State and points in the paint. Purdue did a lot of really good things tonight. They just didn't quite hit enough shots. They go 12 of 25 from behind the 3-point line. They go 28 of 57. The big thing, maybe another thing you want to point to, is Michigan State gets 16 free throws, makes 12 of them. Purdue goes 6 of 9. And not a huge difference, but it's enough where in this game where it's decided by 1 possession, you'd like to get to the free throw line a little bit more frequently. They were able to do that against Indiana. You'd like to see them attack the basket, get to the foul line, and get some points that way. They weren't able to do that tonight. So, overall, this is a game that I think legitimately Purdue and Michigan State are going to play 10 times. Both teams will probably win this game 5 times. Michigan State just made more plays. And I know it's certainly, if you're a Purdue fan, I understand that it's frustrating, right? You have watched this team play 4 ranked opponents on the home floor, and they've lost all 4 of those games. And these were opportunities. When you looked at the schedule, you thought, all right, man, we got Illinois at home. We got Iowa State, Michigan State. All these big-time games are at home, and you go 0-4 in those matchups. So I certainly understand the frustration. I didn't think Purdue played poorly tonight. I thought that they did a good job. They obviously held their own on the glass. They knocked down some timely shots. They just had one too many turnovers, and they had no answer on the defensive end for it. So this is going to be a tough one to swallow. Purdue still has 3 important games. They're still vying for what's now a triple bye in the Big Ten tournament now that 18 teams are in it, because that was a great decision. We need to see teams 16, 17, and 18 compete in the Big Ten tournament for 6 days. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, but whatever. But Purdue's still competing for a triple bye opportunity here. In the Big Ten tournament. They need one of the top 4 seeds. Obviously, they're behind the 8 ball now because they've lost to Michigan, who's going to be the number 1 seed. They've lost to Illinois and Michigan State now, who are both in that 2 seed. So you got to pick up wins against Wisconsin, but Wisconsin at home. But before that, you got to take care of business against Ohio State and Northwestern on the road. So still a lot to play for here if you're Purdue, obviously, in terms of your seeding, your NCAA tournament seeding. 3 big games coming up, only 1 more left on your home floor. So, again, since I'm solo, this is going to be a short one. I'm going to cut out of this. And, again, I appreciate you all tuning in. And hopefully next time we do this, we will have at least 2 of us on to kind of guide. So, again, Purdue falls 76-74 to Michigan State. Purdue is now 22-6 on the season, and they are 12-5 in Big Ten play. This has been BoilerBall postgame in the lounge.